Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, your favorite automotive show where we tackle the issues. We tackle the issues that affect the customer experience at your store. Whether it's the front of the house, the back of the house, or somewhere in between, it doesn't really matter. Because the better experience they have in your store, the more they will come back to you for everything they need when they need it. And here's a fun fact. They'll bring their entire tribe, their coworkers, their friends, their family, the people they bowl with, everybody, because you will be their car guy or car gal. And I'm very fortunate. I have a great network of friends and connections that come on here most weeks that share with us what they do or what they've done to improve the customer experience at their stores. Real actionable insights you can use starting tomorrow. So it's not some fluff. It's not something we learn on a video or a PowerPoint. This is stuff that we do by grinding it out in store every day and every week. And this week is no exception. I have my friend Michael Aufmuth with Elite F&I Partners joining us today. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you, Paul. I was just telling you a second ago before the show started, but I'm super excited to be here with you. This is my third appearance on your show, and I'm happy to be. And I just love your show, man. I love following you and everything that you're doing here. So it's awesome.
Well, you are my inspiration on the road. I love following your success, and you are a true consummate road warrior, man. I don't think there are as many people that do what you do the way you do it, and you make it look easy. So welcome to the show.
Yeah. Being a road warrior, which I know you can attest to, has its challenges, right? And traveling has its moments of like being disappointing and being what it is sometimes. But, you know, being able to be in a store, being able to meet with people face to face is still very much important to me in our agency. So it is a part of what we do.
So for the few folks that may or may not know you, why don't you kind of give us a brief history of your background and how you got to this point?
Sure. I started in the automotive industry in 1997. I actually worked for my father at the family dealership. It's funny, I went in sales and honestly didn't think I was going to do it. I didn't think I was going to be in the car business. I had a computer science background. My brother used to call me the propeller hat guy, you know, where I was writing code and doing things of that nature. And the first day that I was on the sales floor, I sold 2 vehicles, made a ton of money in commission, and got hooked. And the car business, I grew up in it. I always saw it around me, just never was something I thought was going to be a part of my life until I actually got a taste of it for myself. And it's addicting, you know. And so I, you know, worked my way up on the sales floor into basically an assistant manager position in our family dealership, and to the point where I was running one of our locations, to the point where I basically became the guy running the entire show. From there, I spent a good amount of time basically getting to run any position that I really wanted to do. And what I always gravitated towards was the finance office. So 13 years of the entire 17 years that I worked in the family dealership, 13 years of that was in finance. And so I was the guy that was in the background, you know, negotiating deals with the banks and getting approvals and then sitting down with customers. And some of this was even before like finance menus and things were really kind of a thing. And it was like, how do we present these products and what can we do to make that better? And so at the time in our family dealership, I wrote a DMS that basically introduced F&I products into the process, right? And it would rate the contracts and it would display different payment options and it would do things that at the time weren't really commonplace. And so that is in essence how I ended up transitioning over to where I'm at now, because I got introduced to a warranty company called Warrantech. They took me out to an NADA conference where I presented the software to a bunch of agents, to what I am now. And that is in essence the beginning of where I started to get my feel of what it was like to be an agent, what this vendor side of the agency or this part of the industry would look like. And eventually, fast forward, I ended up working for an agency as a specialist. And as a specialist, you're the guy that's on the road, right? So talking about being a road warrior, they said, hey, Mike, we know that you live in Arizona, but we want you to go to Georgia and train Mazda and Volvo dealerships on F&I training process and go in there and start creating a real impact. And so luckily, my wife was incredibly supportive. And so I took the opportunity. And next thing you know, I'm in Georgia and I'm growing a market I knew nothing about, but it was awesome. It was exciting and something different, but in the same industry that I already spent a lot of years in growing and understanding. From that, the relationships grew through dealerships that I got to meet into Michigan and a couple other states. And so fast forward about 6 years into it, the agency I was working for ended up selling to a larger company, at which point in time I had a kind of a fork in the road where we got to choose, hey, do we want to continue on the path of this other company, or do we want to start our own and basically break off and do what we think we can do? So approximately 5.5 years ago, we started Elite FI Partners. We were super excited and got out there and started really going full speed. Again, that time was just my wife and myself, and COVID hits, right? And so all of a sudden it's like, hey, I have a lot of relationships in Michigan, but guess what? Now you can't even walk into a dealership in Michigan, right? So it really changed the narrative a little bit. But what it did is it took somebody like myself who's maybe a little ADD and really fast paced and out there, and it slowed me down a little bit and allowed me to meet some of these different companies and administrators and learn some of these programs. And so what turned into something that scared me turned into a major positive, because now it's like, hey, I have all this stuff in my arsenal because we took the time to learn the programs and, really figure out some of the options, things that are available. I joined a group called Thirsty Thursdays Think Tank. I think you were in that a couple times.
Yes, yeah.
We met, once a week and got to meet some people across the country and kind of grow roots even when we were all kind of stuck in the house. And it just kind of catapulted from there, right? And I got out there when, things started opening up and started getting in stores. We put some of these programs in place. And again, we just started slowly but surely just, adding more dealerships and more partners and growing to where we are now. And so fast forward, we're, 5.5 years in, our agency is about 10 people working on our team now. We're in 27 states as of this last week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and a little over 500 dealer partners. So.
Wow. And that comes from hard work, man. I see you out there just logging the miles. And what I love about our business, and as our friendship evolves and develops deeper and deeper, there are layers of the onions that get peeled back. So I learned a little bit about you today, what I didn't know before, that you actually wrote software to do what you do. And I was telling you before the show, you and I share a lot of similarities. And, the funny thing is, when I was working in the Mercedes service department, I quickly learned that every 300 SD with a certain vintage had these particular problems. Every 560 or 380 SL of a certain vintage had those problems, right? So in Excel, I created a model-specific spreadsheet. And that Excel document had in it all of the things that typically go wrong in those vehicles. And I had 3 blocks if it was something that needed replacement, something that was still good, or something we should talk about, and give them the option as to whether or not they want to do it now or 3 months from now.
Right.
And so the techs loved it. I explained to the customer what it was for. They loved it. RO values went up. CSI went up. The techs loved it because now they're making more money and they weren't missing things on their inspection, right? And then a few years later, something called an NPI would come out.
There it is.
Right? And even like on the sales floor in Excel, I had, we have a lot of companies with all kinds of software today, but I had a lease calculator, finance calculator, cash calculator, cost of income opportunity costs between the various payments, 5-year projection cost of ownership. And then I printed off like the ROs, all the work that was done, the iPacket type stuff of today, way back in the 80s.
Right.
All that.
We knew we wanted a better process then. We just didn't have maybe the resources and the tools to put it in place until now, maybe. So,
yeah.
It's kind of fun to see some of the different applications and things coming out, like, tailoring into that. Like, you see AI playing a factor in a lot of software now, and it's fun to see some of the progression of this and how much faster it's actually happening. And the tools that are available to write code now, like you can write an entire application in one night that might have taken you 2 years in the past. It's insane what's capable of being done nowadays.
Insane. Abdul says the camera has gone blank. I see it on my side. Sometimes there could be some Wi-Fi issues. Not sure, but I'm sure it will come back. So you have F&I training, and we have in-store training, and we have virtual training. All right. Now, a lot of stores use in-store training, hands-on stuff, to build their teams, because they figure, this keeps them in the dealership culture. using dealership systems. How do you ensure, let's say, that hands-on F&I training aligns with evolving expectations of customers and the changing automotive landscape?
So, in-store training is quite a bit for us, right? So when we go into a dealership, no two dealerships are going to be the exact same thing, right? So we're going to have some dealerships that are maybe a little bit further along. Maybe they got some 10-year employees where, they have a really defined process and maybe they're going through something and it works pretty well. So what we do inside of that dealership and that culture is different than a dealership that maybe we're hiring a brand new finance manager who's just getting started in the finance office and doesn't have a whole lot of experience behind that desk. And so what we look at is what each scenario needs, right? So we created what we call adaptive training. And so on the, last 5.5 years, myself being on the road, most of my time is split up into two things. Part of it is marketing, where we're out, trying to sell our agency and talk about some of the services and things that we do. The other part of it is sitting across from a finance manager, make them as uncomfortable as possible, right? And I don't mean it in a bad way, but I want to break them, right? I want to find their breaking point, where they are in their process, because, and I always joke with them, like, I'm going to be an asshole for a little bit. I'm going to be that customer that's going to hit you with every objection. We classify it as an F customer, but I'm going to be that guy because I want to see where you go and how you navigate that. So that brand new finance manager, I don't have to be as big of that guy, right? I don't have to be like super hard on him because there's not a lot installed there. The guy that's established, he might have a really decent process, but he may get him off the rails real quick. And if somebody says no, he might just give up, right? He may not think about how to retort that or have like some kind of process that he follows after that point in time. So in our training, we in the store will focus on a couple categories. It'll be product knowledge, right? How well do you understand the programs and the contracts that you're offering to your customer? Because if I put a piece of paper in front of a customer, I'm selling a piece of paper until I tell him what this paper is going to do and how it's going to impact his life. And so I need to make sure that they understand that. And so I start drilling them on that. And once I know they have that down, that's like the first layer for me. Because if you're not great at a process at that point in time, but you at least understand the contracts and things that you're selling, you'll be a little bit more effective because you'll talk intelligently about what you're offering. So that's like the first layer for me. Next, we'll get into, process, right? Like, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And when are we doing it? Which is going to be more of like the dynamics. So with us, we initially, when we first started training, it was more about like memorization and like almost like a script. Here's what we want you to say and how we want you to kind of say it. But the moment I leave, most of the time, those guys might be able to even do it great in front of me, but they're not doing it once I leave. Right. And so they just get comfortable doing it to what feels natural to them. Right. And so we changed our approach. So it's more about dynamics. And that is more about like the steps that you're going to follow and how you're going to follow those steps. So product knowledge, process, and then compliance. Those are going to be the three areas inside the dealership to answer your question of how we do it.
Now, it's important to know all the products because you don't necessarily know which ones are going to resonate until you've done a brief interview if you don't have any kind of like pre-interview process, right?
That's correct.
And active listening time it's pretty widely accepted. You've got about 45 minutes with a customer in the box?
Yeah, and sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more depending on the situation, but you're absolutely right. When you talk about an interview and getting in front of a customer, one of the first things I educate somebody on is that get out there as fast as you can. Be on the sales floor. Make sure that you are introducing yourself. Make sure you're making a connection. And if you can, don't even talk about the car. Just ask about their experience, right? How's John on the sales floor treating you? A lot of people don't realize. And I try to make a joke or get them laughing. Just be a friend. Would you guys like a water, coffee, tea, anything? Like just make them feel comfortable, because as soon as they see you as an ally, next thing you know, they get introduced to you as the finance person. And it's no longer threatening to them. It's no longer, oh my God, I'm going to the finance office. Now it's a person that I've already met. This guy's really cool. He's been taking care of us. You've already taken their guard down. And so that's a huge part of, just about every finance manager is how fast can they get in front of a customer and actually make an impact with them.
Now, but you have some high volume stores where you don't necessarily know if that's going to be your next turn though, right?
That's true. But as soon as you do, you want to make sure you're introducing yourself to that customer. And then even so, if, a finance manager sitting in the office, and I'll attest to this, like I'll walk into dealerships all the time, go in their office, and right away I want to look at their computer screen. I'm nosy, right? And a lot of times it's YouTube or Facebook, and, they're goofing off and there's something on there that they probably shouldn't be doing. And it's true everywhere, right? Like, I'm not trying to be an ass about it, but like, they have free time. So
Yeah.
if they're in a big store and maybe it's high volume and there's 5 finance managers, sitting side to side, and you don't know which customer is going to be yours, that doesn't mean you can't go inject yourself into a couple of the customers and just make sure the experience is good. Because maybe you don't even talk to the customer that's coming in your office, but they see you making sure, somebody's having a good experience, and that adds up, right? All these little pieces add up. Now, if they're just back to back with customers and they're getting rushed in the office, there's not much you can do about that other than, try to go out and introduce yourself at the point in time that a customer's coming in. But anytime you got free time, take advantage of that, right? That should be an automatic for a finance manager, because all it's going to do is benefit like you in the sense of like, having more success inside the finance office. It's going to benefit the customer because they're going to have a better experience at the dealership. And ultimately that makes a huge, huge difference.
Well, and thinking about this now, so even if I'm not the one taking the turn, just by virtue of me being in the business office and being a friendly voice and a friendly face, then that kind of de-escalates that office for anybody, right, that's going to talk to them, because their friends have told them, and depending on how much time they spend with the salesperson, if they spend too much time, then they're going to come in with the watch. Oh, I got to get out of here. I've already spent 3-4 hours. I don't want to buy anything. I got to go, which doesn't do anybody, including themselves, any justice.
Right.
But yeah, no.
The reality is, though, like anytime a customer has committed and they've, said, hey, I'm buying this vehicle, at that exact point in time, the clock is working against us in the finance office, right? So the customers are always in a hurry after that point in time. They want to get out of the dealership as fast as possible. I can't tell you the number of times I'm sitting in the office training somebody and they're like, this guy's got to get out of here real quick. We need to get this one done right now. And I'm always kind of giggling because I'm like, everybody's in a hurry. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it works. But, again, go out, meet your customer, congratulate them, like set some real expectations as far as what they're going to see. So, hey, it's going to take me X amount of minutes to get back here before I get everything prepared for you. Do you have any questions? And then again, there's certain questions I like to ask and I have finance managers asking, but again, you're setting the stage for how you can present the products tailored to that customer. So, again, as soon as I can get out there, as much as I can get out there and in front of them, let them realize that you're working for them and you're doing everything you can to help them. And I have a buddy of mine, and I'll touch on this briefly and let you keep going here, but I went and bought a vehicle not too long ago for him, and it was for my daughter. And so we had the deal kind of worked out. Everything was done. We go to the dealership and it's like 8:45. They close at 9, but everything should have been basically prepared and ready to go. Well, we get there and he's nowhere to be found, the finance manager. So like 9:10 rolls around. I see him walk into the office. He throws his keys on the desk. He's obviously pissed that he's there, kind of late. He's got this real attitude like the whole way through the delivery. And so anyway, like I get through it and he comes out and he doesn't even do a full menu presentation. He goes, do you want to buy any of the products? And I'm like, not with that attitude. I don't.
Wow.
And I'm like, this guy doesn't know what I do for a living. Right. But I'm just dying laughing about how embarrassed I am for him. Right. Like, well, this is like the worst delivery. And my daughter, who's getting her first car under her name at 18, is like going through this. So I had to explain to her, I'm like, that's not how all these go. Like, this is not the process. Yeah. But I mean, you see it all, right? There's people out there that, I get it. There might be frustration because it's late or you want to get out of the dealership, but you should never take that out on a customer. Like it should never be something that, other than like trying to tailor it to the best experience possible, because that one broken link, that one manager that makes a bad experience tarnishes that entire dealership and everything that can happen thereafter. So,
yeah, that's just part of the job, right? Let me just go to a comment here. Abdul says, I always introduce myself to buyers once it was my turn with deal in my hand. I was an icebreaker and always got them within 10 to 15 minutes. No, that's a great point. And that your experience after hours, look, that's the car business, man. The doors at 8 o'clock is when we close, and I can't tell you how many times at 10 p.m. at night, I was at the gas station tanking up a car while pulling the shrink wrap off the body for a stop delivery, and I would be there probably till about 10:30, 11, sometimes, only to have to be back early the next morning and do it all over again. So some of these people really need to kind of figure out whether or not this is something for them long term, because if you're going to do a job, you have to do it to the best of your ability. You owe it to the customer, you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your dealer to do that. Now, I have a question about compliance. All right. In 2023, nearly 40% of dealerships reported compliance issues in their F&I departments. All right. So being up to date on compliance training, things like that is very, very critical. What do you find are some of the most effective methods in helping F&I professionals build confidence while staying compliant with rapid changing regulations? Because it seems like they want to regulation us to death.
There definitely is a lot of stuff out there that can make it very confusing, because there's a lot of areas that we need to have focus on. Now, I am a guy that really believes in the AFIP training. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but AFIP is a great compliance tool. You would go to their school every 2 years to stay kind of current with them as far as like how they handle it. They typically put on a class that'll go from a day to 3 days, depending on, who's all in and how large the class size is and how they're going to get the information out to you. But the trick really is this: like, compliance doesn't need to be super complicated. There's a lot of things that we need to pay attention to inside the dealership. AFIP is one method of training that I think is a great one. There's several of them out there. I think every dealership should have it, like where they've sent their people to a compliance training outside of, what you're doing day to day. Yeah. Myself, like inside of training, like inside the dealership, we go through compliance as well. We hit the highlights, right? Because again, I'm in your store maybe one day a week or one day every 2 weeks, and I'm focused on process. I'm focused on product knowledge. I'm talking about compliance. I think it's important enough for compliance to be taken serious, where those people come out of the store for a couple of days, focus on everything as far as the laws go and what they should be doing, right? And then when they come back to the dealership, it's about accountability, right? So what I'm looking at is, okay, these people now know the difference of what's right and wrong. They went through the compliance training. They passed the compliance training, right? Now, who's holding them accountable, right? And sometimes, in some instances, that's us, right? Sometimes we're going into the dealership and auditing different things in deal jackets and taking it to the management or the owners and saying, here's what we're seeing, right? And we're reporting that back. I prefer somebody inside the dealership, typically that is a, general manager, sales manager, some cases, owner, that is looking at, certain things. And I'll put the process in place. This is what I want you to look for. This is what I want you to do. And again, like, I want to make sure that we're checking it on a real regular basis, because it's the accountability piece that makes it where it doesn't fall apart. If a finance manager knows somebody's checking their work and making sure they're doing all the steps they need to be doing, they're going to do them. If a finance manager realizes no one's looking at it and they can get sloppy, and it's not necessarily intentional, but like they can be fast about a deal and maybe they forget something, it's very easy to make that same mistake over and over and over again, instead of it being called out when it does happen the first time.
I want to go to Mo's comment. He says it takes more time take more time if you're in California? One of my guys, a solid man, takes a bit longer than I'm used to going through F&I.
Each state's going to have, like, in my opinion, different things that they're going through, typically, like when it comes to paperwork or forms. But as far as the process, as far as, interviewing and talking to a customer, going through a menu presentation, most of that's pretty consistent regardless of what state you're in.
Right.
I don't really run into where, hey, if I'm in Virginia, it's going to take, 20 minutes longer than I am when I'm in Florida or, North Carolina or wherever the case may be. It's really, for us, the same process. The compliance piece is always going to be really very similar. It's not really that much different. It's just making sure that you're checking the boxes and doing the things that you do. Delivery time, again, I mean, you can have traditionally, like, if you have all your paperwork done and a good menu presentation, a customer out of your office in 35 to 45 minutes. And in my opinion, that's doing everything you should be doing, right? And I've seen guys do it much faster than that, but then you start skipping steps and you're trying to do things just to kind of expedite it and get it out of there. So at that point, maybe you're doing a short delivery on the menu presentation and you're not building value in your products and you're not talking about how it's going to impact them down the road. Like, there's certain key things I think that need to be part of every delivery.
Abdul's got a comment here. He says, for 12 to 15 years, I celebrate New Year's at the dealership, rolling 50, 60 cars on New Year's Eve. Wow. That's the high volume store right there.
Yeah, it is.
But what's interesting is that, you do need to be on the money because you do have such a short period of time. But and each moment makes a huge difference. I find that there are basically, at least in my experience, there are two types of F&I people. There's the rock star that can sell ice to Eskimos, but the paperwork is maybe a little questionable. And then there's the guy that gets $600 a copy, but his paperwork is impeccable, right? Kind of two. But I think a lifeline for the F&I department has come in the way of technology, i.e., some of these where you can auto sign a lot of different documents, right? You have the one signature, and then it's just a question of clicking through and acknowledging, that what's on the piece of paper or on the screen. And then e-contracting, that's cut down on some of the time also, that they have. So, if you claw back a minute or a couple of minutes, then it gives you that much more time to make sure that you're compliant. Now, the compliance stuff, is that required by law as far as the training for the F&I people, or the store is on the hook for it and it's up to the dealer to make sure that they go through the training?
A lot of liability falls on the dealership, but there's also liability that falls on the finance manager. As you go through like AFIP's training program, they outline certain things that will fall as far as a liability on the finance person as he's putting information together on credit apps and things of that nature. So, it's important to know where that liability, but the reality of it is that, and this is my takeaway when I went through AFIP, is that, it was a lot of information, right? Like I did the expedited class, which is like a day and a half total time to take 150 question test, where they drill you on a lot of different things, and the questions are designed to honestly confuse you a little bit to see if you were paying attention. And it's like drinking out of a garden or out of a fire hose, right? Information out of a fire hose. It's just a ton of information. And I remember telling my wife, because she and I both went through it at the same time, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I've done this for years and I'm still like nervous about this test. But I'm like, the reality of it is a lot of it, right? Like as you sit in a finance office, some of this stuff is very common sense. Like I would expect that most finance managers can make the right decision on, 3/4 of that test, just knowing what the right thing would be, right? Like, you don't pack payments, you don't inflate income, you don't do certain things. Yeah, right. Seems obvious, right? But like these things are just real obvious things that, they put a question on there and ask the question to make sure that you're paying attention. But, it seems very obvious. There are some questions that you don't know that, hey, what would the fine be if the dealership not doing certain things, right? So that I thought was really interesting, and how much liability there is for a dealership when certain things aren't happening, right? And so that part's interesting, but liability falls on both sides.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's not something a lot of people think about as a liability falling on themselves. But then I'm scratching back a few years back and seeing some of the F&I people, along with some other unscrupulous personnel, that have actually gone to prison for doing some of these things that you're not supposed to do. Right. And I've seen people in situations where they got approved for things that they really had no business being approved for. An 85% debt to wage on a high school student that works part-time at a Chick-fil-A on a $600 monthly payment isn't something that happens on its own.
Yeah. Instead of selling him the $100,000 Escalade, maybe we should put him in the vehicle that fits the situation, right? So So I understand that completely, but I think a big thing is, again, that like what should seem obvious, a lot of stores are already doing, right? Like it's the stuff that, like, as I went through the training, I was kind of giggling on some of it. Like, I can't believe this is even on the test, right? But it's good because it tells everybody, I went through this, I know what is, the right approach and what needs to be done correctly. And then when you put a process in place that's checking the deals that are coming through the finance office, I mean, you're basically, in essence, ensuring everything's getting done correctly. And it's just about accountability. It's about making sure you got somebody that's looking over that situation and policing it as it's happening.
I like training somebody in the store to then be responsible over it, because let's face it, we're in the store a day, a week, a couple of days, whereas somebody in store is there 50 plus weeks a year, right? And that's somebody, that's the old train the trainer mentality. If we can set them up for success and have them monitor the process, then everybody's better off for it, right? I'd rather go in, rather than be a good firefighter, I'd rather have a good fire prevention program. So I just need to manage the process and make sure everybody's good.
And again, the person that is that person, that's the guy checking, the deals that are coming through the office. I love having a conversation with that person every week to every 2 weeks, right? What are you seeing?
Yeah.
What's coming through here? What are you checking for, right? Because again, then we can refine it and make it better, and I can still assist. But again, it's not me having to look at every single deal. I can spend my time talking about process. I can spend my time figuring out what they do or do not understand about a product. So it's like the whole thing starts to evolve and spin in a lot better direction because we're all firing as a team. And that's really, I mean, you said it a second ago, it's all about the process, right? And, if my finance guy is following a great process and I got somebody overseeing him following a great process, everything's just kind of falling into place and it works really well.
Yeah, no, I like it. Abdul says California is one of the most restrict on compliance and advertising. We got training every 6 months on compliance and workplace environment. You cannot have enough of that, in my opinion. And Zach Whipple says, Michael, shot you a connection. Love this philosophy.
Awesome.
And Abdul says, closer and F&I are best and most satisfying job in the automotive for productive individuals with job security. Yeah. Previously known as the hammer, right?
I mean, I love the finance office. I've always told people that, one of the things that when I was a finance manager, I loved about, sitting in that office was that no 2 days were the same, right?
Yeah.
You would have a day where, you would have customers, and I was always like the opposite of a hammer. I'd have people coming in and they'd be angry that their payment would be going up $85 because I'm showing them all the products and things that are available. And by the time they were leaving, they were thanking me because I took the time to slow down and explain how these products would work and what the benefit would be to them. And so, again, I think some people sometimes get intimidated by showing somebody what, the math is or what the numbers are. And really it's like the people that cower to that is you're setting this bad expectation for a customer, right? For me, I always, another thing that you see or a trend that you see inside a dealership is that, hey, finance managers will tell you what their PVR is, what their average gross is on a deal or transaction. And then I'll be like, okay, is that all transactions or is that finance? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, what's your finance, cash, and lease PVR? Right. Because what that tells me is and a lot of guys will tell you oh, it's a cash deal, that's different. And I'm like, no, it really isn't. If somebody has the money, the funds to purchase a vehicle, they're buying a $60,000 SUV, you're telling me they can't afford another $5,000, $8,000 for the protections that are available with that SUV? They absolutely can. They just have to see the value in it. So instead of selling based on a payment, now you have to build value in a product, right? And so I love those conversations because I'm like, sell me your product, show me how you're selling that situation, right? And then we really get into the weeds a little bit, but then they start to think about it differently. Because to me, building value in a product is done a couple different ways, right? I'm building it based on a payment, right? In some instances, hey, it's only $5 more to have this protection. I'm selling you a payment, right? Hey, I'm building it based on the features and benefits. It's going to cover this, 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 and this. Or I'm building it on the convenience, right? So if I have a customer sitting across from me and he's a business person, he's writing a check for $60,000, he's got a lot going on. His time is one of his biggest commodities. I'm selling convenience because I'm like, hey, look, man, if this breaks down, if something happens, the cool thing about this contract is, and I'm going over to the little things that most people don't talk about, it's going to get a tow truck, it's going to get it picked up, it's going to take it right to the shop where it needs to get repaired. In the meantime, while that's getting repaired, you got a rental car, so you're not getting inconvenienced with your time, right? So we're going to sell based on how that's going to fit. But that gets more into the interview of what you were talking about. As I'm going out and meeting with a customer and I'm talking about, their experience, I'm also kind of gauging that customer in the psychology of who they are, right? Is what's important to this person? How are they thinking? Is it, they're all about business and they're just really, dedicated to a process in their own time? Are they a family and their kids are their life and they're going to soccer games and they're doing different things? Because all of that matters when I get in there and I'm selling the product, because those features and benefits and the payment and the convenience are all big factors that we're playing into it to, build value in it for them.
But you're 100% correct, because a lot of times an F&I manager can be intimidated by a cash deal or a lease deal, right? Because they don't think the opportunity is there. But, I hate to break it to you guys out there, guys and gals out there, but I don't care who the manufacturers of the car, they all have heavy technology, they all break, and they all cost a lot of money. I bought a brand new car. First year and a half of that car, it had some issues. And I asked the advisor, I said, listen, do me a favor. Had I not had a warranty and I had to pay for this out of pocket, how much expense would I have incurred? And he told me it added up to like $8,500. So I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm keeping this car out of warranty. So I can either buy another car or I can buy a warranty. Now, I got the OEM to see value in giving me an 8-year 120 zero deductible extended warranty because, look, I've created a lot of content for them and I've generated a lot of sales, and I figured, why should I take it on the chin? Maybe they could do something for me. And they saw the value and they did. So anything that's out there, we're doing them a disservice if we're not spending the time to educate them and to show them the value, because anybody can understand value. And to your point, if somebody's there ready to stroke a $60,000 check, what's another $3,000 or $4,000 in the grand scheme of things? It's nothing but that convenience and time. That's huge. Let me get to a couple of comments here because I don't want to fall too far behind. Technology and menus along with DocuSign have reduced time spent in F&I. As F&I person, as dealer's protector for correct VINs and contracts. That's exactly what I was getting to, a few moments before. Those have definitely, what do you call that? The $10,000 table, right? That was the nickname for it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Again, we're the last line of defense to answer, like, along with what he's saying. Like, we have to be efficient, but like fast at the same time. But the efficiency part for me is, hey, did we spell the name correctly? Did we put the right VIN number in? Because I can tell you, I've seen it where they sell a vehicle and they realize, we sold the wrong car to that customer, right? And something transpired on a VIN number, and next thing you know, you're bringing a customer in as fast as you can to correct everything. So, but yeah, no, that's huge.
And when they come back to re-sign, you're not necessarily keeping everything.
Correct. You're starting over. Yeah, like, you might be able to do it fast, but ultimately the customer is in control at that point.
Yeah, because now they've spoken to a neighbor that's well-intentioned but not well-informed, and they're talking them out of things that really are in their best interest.
Right.
Abdul says packing payments is no longer allowed in California, only 1% max pack. Well, I don't think packing payments is allowed in any state. However, I've been in a number of states where that's kind of the norm. You give them the payment, and by the way, this includes X, Y, and Z, and not every.
I've seen dealerships that don't even say that. You know what I mean? Like, they'll put a payment out there that they don't tell them it includes anything, but it's packed, right? None of that, in my opinion, is good. The biggest thing I coach and I tell every dealership partner that we have is that transparency is key, right? Like, a lot of customers nowadays can pull a tool out on their iPhone and tell you to the T what your payment should be, right? Like, minus some taxes and things of that nature. So if you're in there trying to do something that is hiding something or dishonest, all you're doing is making yourself look bad, because the customers are very well informed nowadays, right? So be transparent, right? Tell them what it is. Like, don't go into it like you have to close them on a payment that isn't real and use that as the leg in a deal that I've heard many people talk about, which is illegal, right? You shouldn't be doing that. So go out there, tell them what the real numbers are, let them come into finance, and let finance build value in the product to justify what the increase in payment is, right? Or the increase in the amount financed. So
I've seen, the sales game has kind of changed. I think we've evolved from salespeople to educators, right? We are there to educate them as to what their options are. We find out what's best for them. The car's on the road over 12 years on average today, right? I'm not saying that you're going to necessarily keep your car for 12.6 years or whatever the number is, but if you did, that's how long these cars are on the road. So why would you not have maximum protection? Now, Abdul says front and back end average should be at least 3,000 on new and 4,000 on pre-owned. 3,000 on new is beyond stronger than garlic, man. What's a good number today, Mike? Is it 2,000, 2,500?
Like, COVID really changed things up a little bit. Like, when we were in that time frame, like, you watch these numbers skyrocket in a lot of stores. Like, I have stores, like, especially when you get into high end, like Land Rovers and things of that nature, you see a larger back end PVR number, right? That's more of a consistent average, like he's talking about there, where you could have 4,000 pretty consistently. I have stores that, don't hit those type of metrics, that are hitting 1,000 to 1,500 in that ballpark. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think that is, something that a dealership should be ashamed of. Are we taking care of our customer, right? Is the finance performing? Like, I can go in there and we can fine tune and tweak and make adjustments to increase an average. I don't chase an average. I chase an experience, right? The average is a byproduct, right? That's the only way I look at it. And so my dealerships all make a great average, right? And I'm not out here boasting, hey, we make X amount of dollars per transaction, because I think that's failure in what we're doing. I don't want our industry to become transactional in the way that a customer realizes that they're coming in and like, oh, here we go. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go through this process and they're going to try to sell me something. We need to be educators, right? We need to be in the office explaining to them, like you just said, hey, did you realize that most of your vehicle is electronic components? Did you realize that these components are no longer something that can be repaired? You don't see people soldering iPhones and putting them back together, right? These are things that are taken out and replaced. So it's not just the part, it's the time, right? And these things get expensive. Let me talk to you about that. So as you break down into what these things are and how they work, the value of that product is there for the customer, right? They will see the value of it. And especially when it's just a small incremental payment difference, right? If I can show them that value, the result is going to be, yes, the dealership's going to make money. I've had customers ask me, like, does the dealership make a lot of money in the finance office? I go, yeah, they make money in the finance office. This is a profit center for the dealership. Absolutely. Yeah. At the same time, this is going to be something that's going to be inherently great value for you. Let me explain. Right. And again, transparency doesn't do anyone any, unjust service, right? Like, again, I'm not going to lie to you. We make money, right? That's our job in the dealership. We profit. But when did profit become a bad word, right? It's not if it's tied to value, right? Because if I can justify it with value, again, the customer isn't going to feel bad about you making money if they feel like they got a great value for what they're buying. Yeah. And I think that's the key.
And Jeff Larson spells it out right here on the screen. Transparency is key to the most profitable front and back. I see it more as a recognize your opportunity. It's no different than in service. If you're looking for a certain dollar per RO, if you've maximized every opportunity that customer needs without selling them extra stuff just to make your number, well, then you've achieved success in my book, regardless of what that number is.
Right.
And Abdul says, transparency is what makes us successful, gaining trust for customers, 100%. And my friend Steve Apicella, I sent him a text photo when we were at dinner in Florida that came up on a memory on my phone. Sent that to him. He says, I love F&I too. You're friends with Steve, right?
Oh, yeah. I love Steve. He's a good dude.
Great guy. Although
I was going to say, I want to throw out there Jeff's a stud in the sales world. I see some of the stuff he's doing. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I hope to see you at NADA, Steve. Although critically valuable in its current process, it's mostly limited to a one-time transaction at the end of a multi-hour vehicle buying experience. My opinion, make the most of that moment, but there's so much more F&I to be earned beyond the vehicle sale. Here. It's called building that relationship and taking another swing at the bat. And he's got a great product that does that.
I was going to say, Steve's got that kind of on lock right now as far as, and I think he's gaining traction on it, some of the technology that he offers, but he's spoken about that, I think, for years now, where he says, hey, we have our little window of time in the finance office, but let's take some technology and build a platform, which is what he's done, that allows us to show some of these products after the sale, which is exciting, right? That's really cool that's something that's starting to become more and more common. And then he also has got some technology in the fixed op space that I think is incredibly powerful as well.
Yeah, no, great guy. Jeff Larson, if a customer is at the dealership more than an hour, that's a problem. Well, on average, they're in the store over 3 hours across the board. I don't care what brand. That's kind of what they are, Jeff. So it's no wonder why you win Salesman of the Year award every month, day in, day out, because you've got this baby dialed in and figured out, man. My hat's off to you. Abdul says domestic cars, when he was referring to the 3,000 or 4,000. That's strong as garlic, man.
Very strong.
Jeff says, when it's easy and efficient, I guarantee you'll be more profitable. Stop the back and forth. Get her done.
Yep. Jeff's right. I mean, again, like the thing about it, like I preach and I've said, like I have a process inside the finance office and I know what that process is, how it works, how long it takes, right? And
Yeah.
it's efficient, right? Now, I'm not saying my process is the end all. I'm sure there's other processes out there from other F&I trainers that are great also. If you stick to it, right, what happens is you eventually just become more and more fine-tuned with it, right? You know exactly how to respond. You know exactly how to get things done quickly. Your efficiency goes up, and to Jeff's point, you become quicker. You don't have to skip steps to be good at what you do. You need to, in essence, become the expert or the ninja right inside the finance office or in the process wherever you fit into it, to just create that experience where it's just seamless for a customer. And I think that's huge, right? Again, like 10-year guys that are inside dealerships, trust me, they're going to be much faster than a guy that's just starting in a position.
Oh, yeah.
They got that thing dialed in and they know exactly how to do it. They probably can grab a car or a customer, get them into the finance office and out of the dealership in a really efficient manner. Now, an hour is quick, right? I'm not going to say whether that's doable or not. I'm sure Jeff's doing some numbers like that because he's pushing a lot of cars through the dealership. But again,
A lot of repeat also. Keep in mind, he's got a lot of repeat.
Yeah.
So those
it makes a huge difference because you take somebody like Jeff, I think he's got trust with all of his customers, right? So when they come in, he's not establishing trust with a lot of them right off the bat. He's already got it. So his time frame is probably shorter than most because people come in and go, hey, where's Jeff? Right? I want to buy my car from Jeff, right? And they come in and go, hey, I want this Toyota Tundra out here, or whatever it is. And he grabs them, puts it together, shows them the numbers. They go into the office, and get papered up and get out. Like, I'm sure that's dialed in. Now, somebody a brand new salesperson, they're going to stumble a little bit in the beginning and they're going to figure things out. Doesn't make them a bad person, doesn't make them bad at the process, but they will only get better the more they go through it and they get some appropriate coaching and how to refine that process.
Yeah. Now, the virtual F&I market grew by 30% in 2024. Dealerships sought flexibility and cost-effective solutions. It's expected that over 50% of all dealerships will implement virtual F&I elements by 2026 to handle customer demand more effectively, particularly in the current hybrid work environment. What are some of the key factors that a dealership should consider when deciding whether to implement virtual F&I solutions?
So we have recently started, as of January 1st, we started our own virtual F&I team. And so that's a great question. So for me, we started initially with another company that we were working with. They had a different virtual model than the one I wanted to create. And they did it where a dealership would submit a customer in for approval. They would have their own lenders send back what that customer was approved at. And it turned into more like when I first was watching this of just sending to a bank is what it felt like. We're just, in essence, arranging for financing for a customer. There was no real virtual element to it. Now, that company, I actually went to them and presented to them a full presentation, right? I was like, hey, look, here's how I think we should change this. Here's how I think we should adapt your process to be more successful and honestly grow much faster with dealerships. And the idea was, let's not just try to get their deal bought, right? Let's go in and actually create that virtual extension that offers a true finance manager that has that 10-year experience, right? That is turnkey, right? Like, hey, maybe they don't have a good finance manager. Maybe they just lost somebody because he had to move out of state or whatever the situation was. If that dealership maybe is now worried about like production dropping off or the numbers dipping down, is there a way they can stay consistent, right? And so as we went through these last, 3 to 5 years, COVID and everything taught us a lot. It taught us that we can get more comfortable using virtual tools because prior to COVID, not many people were really using Zoom or a virtual presentation or remote document signing. All of that really got pushed forward quite a bit over these last, couple of years and became more commonplace. And so I have quite a few deliveries where, contracts and things are getting sent remotely and they're getting signed on a, electronic signature and coming back to the dealership. So we were more like, hey, if we can do remote signing, right, and electronic documents in that sense, why can't we bring talented people to a menu presentation and then ultimately an entire finance operation remotely? Right. And so this concept that we had pitched this company on, we went and formed it ourselves. And so what we did is we took one of our dealerships that we felt had tons of room for improvement, right? Like, hey, we've been in your store, we've been training a process, we've been trying to get engagement, and the numbers never really reflected what we wanted to see, especially if the process was getting followed consistently. It seemed like we're telling you what to do, but it's not really getting done. So we went in and talked to this dealer partner of ours and said, hey, your numbers are X. In this case, they're really underperforming. It was like $500 a copy, $400 or $500. And, we've put you in profit sharing programs and we've done these things. Some of those things need metrics, right? You need to hit certain contract volume for that to even make sense. You're not really hitting it. So how opposed would you be to trying and being our first customer on this virtual platform where we will not only get the deal approved, right? We'll handle the financing for you. We'll do a full menu presentation, right? And go through the finance products with your customer and then digitally, remotely sign your customer and then fund the deal for you. So in essence, it's taking your finance manager's responsibilities. And in some dealerships, I know they don't necessarily send out, but we have the flexibility of saying we want to send it out or not send it out. But we take that entire process and turn it into a digital one. So anyway, our first dealership, which was more of our, let's make sure we can prove concept here.
Your beta.
Our beta account. Like we went through and we started seeing right away that not only did it work, it worked really well. And so, right away, everybody on my team, like we're talking about it in our weekly meetings, and we started developing basically a second team for the Virtual F&I. We were talking about it and everybody's really anxious to go, right? Like everyone's like, let's keep pushing this and get the dealerships and let's figure out scale. And I was the one guy in the background going, nope, we're going to slow this down and we're going to just do baby steps here. Because, there's a large learning curve with this, right? Like,
sure.
It's not just a menu presentation process anymore or the steps that we're doing inside a dealership. We're adding quite a bit more complexity to it. And so that process, like we want to get it pretty dialed in. And then with each individual dealership that we work with, it might have little things that we're adjusting to it as far as how it flows, but it's not going to be super major. But anyway, we took that beta store, and for the first 6 months, we really gauged what was happening, dialed our process in, and watched kind of how it was evolving. And we've got to a point now where we're averaging about $2,000 to $2,100 a copy on PVR.
That's respectable.
Yeah, it's about a 2.2 products per. So we're doing over 2, contracts on almost every transaction.
Yeah.
And, we prove concept, right? So the first concept is, hey, can we sell products and do this consistently virtually, right? Can we make this process actually feel like it's just normal for the dealership? And we did, right? I'm sure a lot of it was the energy and the excitement behind my team. We all believed it could be done, so we did it and it worked. But then now it's like, hey, now we have it, so let's slowly but surely start introducing additional dealerships and again, scale so that we make sure that we don't skip a beat. And so in the background, that then introduced us to the question that you're asking is like, when do we introduce this to a dealership? What dealerships is this a good fit for versus which ones are not, right? So some operators are great and they have great teams inside the finance office and they're operating at full capacity. They're doing a great job. I don't even bring up virtual finance to them because I don't want to break that, right? That's good. I want to come in and complement your team and train your team and do things to make them perform better and do a great job inside the dealership. Our agency, though, we look at it like what I'm doing inside your store is going to be the same thing I'm doing virtually now. So I can bring you both solutions, right? If my process is the same on this side, it's going to be the same on this side. So ultimately, if that dealership says, hey, I've lost all my finance team, I need something right now, we can flip a switch and have it for them tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? So now we have the ability to do a virtual team for them or train their in-store team. But the fit really comes down to the dealership. Maybe it's a smaller dealership. They got 100 cars, 50 cars in the lot. They've never really had a defined finance manager, and they're just not really treating it as important as it should be. And so we can come in and show them, hey, allow us to take over this portion of your business. And with doing that, now we can put a process in place and, again, build value in a product and open up doors. And it's revenue for the dealership they didn't have before. It's protection for the customer they didn't have before. It's a win-win, right? And so that's where something like that makes a lot of sense. It fits well for dealerships that are not currently maybe doing a great job in finance or, don't have the right people, lost the right people, whatever the case is. We can now implement a team in place and integrate right into the dealership's process.
I'm seeing a real strong potential in this. Okay. It's like anything else. You have to be on the forefront of it. make the mistakes, learn the processes, and figure out how to scale it. Because I'm seeing this as an invaluable tool, almost like a centralized F&I department for a dealer group, where when it's strong and it's firing on all cylinders, man, I'm seeing a tremendous upside here.
And the thing is, as we continue to grow that side of the business, one of the things that we're realizing is it's going to have a couple caveats to it. So we'll have, in essence, our own finance team. So we're going to bring in our own, F&I managers that are going to be, again, trained to do it our way, to adhere to our process and do our things. But some dealership groups may have, let's say, 6, 7, 8 rooftops, and they want to get a consistent, result and do a really good process with every single customer. So maybe now you have a centralized office that we train for that dealership, right? And teach them how to do the same thing, right? So to me, it's like, I don't care which one it is, like for a dealership. If they want to have people in store and they want me to train those people, I'm down for that. I'm passionate. I get excited about watching the growth. If they say, hey, look, that's just a lot of work, I don't want to deal with it, I want to be able to say, you take care of it. We now can do that too. Right? So, and that's awesome. And then, like I said, in the near future, I think it's going to be also, hey, that concept sounds really cool. Can you show me how to set that up myself? So we'll go in there.
I say build on that, because that, I think, has a very, very strong future. We're going from Blockbuster to Netflix.
Yep.
That's the type of impact I see that having.
Well, and it's a larger undertaking. So I'm more of the, again, like a team will tell you, they want to grow faster with this than I do. I want to go slow and make sure we're doing a good job. Like it's a lot of things and a lot of moving parts going on with it. But so far it's a ton of fun. It's exciting. And the dealerships that we brought on, like, again, since January, I think we're at our 9th dealership. Like, we're not huge on the virtual side, but we have 9 dealerships now that we're overseeing the F&I operations for, and it's exciting. And we 2 weeks ago created a partnership with another company that does a virtual office manager and takes on all the tasks of everybody as like the back office, right? So now we have an extension of, if some dealership says, hey, I don't even want that, we can create different things and create virtual departments for the dealership, and they can run, a virtual office, they can run a virtual finance department. And it's exciting because you also get to a place where maybe a dealership's just struggled to get a good finance guy, right? And they just had, people doing the wrong things, or, the results have just never been there. And now you can go to a dealer and say, I can eliminate all the brain damage and give you a consistent result. That's powerful, right? And it's efficient, and it's compliant, and it's going to bring all the right answers to a dealership. So they don't worry about it anymore. They just know, hey, if I plug this solution in, I should yield X, right? And then you're doing the right process.
There's no secret to running a good business, and you're adding additional layers on here, but you're adding them at the right pace. So you're making sure that you're not making some of the mistakes that are easily made when you rush things to market. So I think you've got a real winner here. I want to go to a couple of comments. Jeff Larson says it's offering everything up front, which makes it more efficient. He says it's all about what I call the peace of mind package. I love that. Talk about value, right? Peace of mind package.
No, the thing about that, like, I agree. Like, the more you can tell them, like, hey, these things are available and, there for your purchase is great. Starting at the sales floor, though, I wouldn't say every salesperson should be pushing the F&I products. Like, I think,
right.
Again, 10-year people that are excellent and have a huge return trust factor. Absolutely. Right. But, guy just starting in there, I don't necessarily want him talking about the service contract and it covers everything. Everything on your vehicle's covered. No, I don't want that. Right. I want to make sure we're going through and explaining, this is exactly what it covers. These are the things that it does not cover. Like, let's be transparent with them again. So I think that's important. So,
Michael, the hour comes really quick, Initially, when I first started doing this about 6 years ago, I thought, wow, an hour, that's a long time. And it seems that an hour just isn't enough, but it's right at the time that we have with an audience. So I want to thank you for coming on. You've shared some great things here, maybe opened some eyes. I've tagged you in the LinkedIn post, so anybody that's not connected, with us, you or I, by all means, if it's relevant for us to connect. You had one person already reach out to you for a connection.
Right. That's awesome.
So that's always a good thing. Any questions that you have, whether you're watching it live or watching it on the replay, a lot of people do watch it on the replay. Feel free, either put in the comment here, ask a question, or reach out to us individually. Happy to work with you. I want to thank those that support this show weekly. I really appreciate it. I love bringing guys like Michael and information to the audience. It's kind of my way of giving back to the automotive community, or our way of giving back to the automotive community. Hope you have a safe and successful next week. And Michael, stay on after we go off here. And we'll see you when we see you. Be on the lookout for the next show announcement. Thanks for tuning in.